From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of the Odd Pods Media Network. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 131 of From the Middle. We are a podcast hailing to you from Central Ohio. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives, with a point of view that is somewhere in the middle. We enjoy having fun conversations, lighthearted conversations on this podcast for the most part. So if you are just joining us and you're looking to have some fun, to be a fly on the wall, one of the best compliments we've ever received is when we've heard that somebody was talking to us in their car, talking to their car radio as they were listening to us. That's what we want you to feel, that you feel included in our conversations here. We try to keep it light and funny and witty to the best of our ability. In this episode, we're bouncing around a little bit. We call out our friends at Grief Burrito because they called us out, because they're awesome. We answer some voicemails. We talk about video games, things that we're streaming. We're talking about Christmas parties and Formula One racing, and it's all over the place, folks. Hope that you enjoy this one. Peace.
Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it?
You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved. From the Middle after dark over here.
5, 6, 7, 8. Chubby Hubbles on the mic. Make us feel happy. Make us feel fine. Bum bum Chubby Hubbles.
Oh, we're going again?
No. Okay.
No, okay.
Hey.
Hey-o.
You know what makes these Chubby Hubbles and Kendall excited? The fact that we're becoming podcast famous. Tiger Belly one week and Grief Burrito the next.
Gosh, I love those guys.
Isn't it fun?
It is fun.
We prompted them, those guys, with an idea.
Oh, not we. We don't get credit. You prompted
Oh, well.
them. You prompted them.
Stop. But also, thanks. Yeah, so as you guys know, they're friends of ours in a video game and comedy culture entertainment podcast as well, just on the other side of the pond. And I asked them, if you were deserted on an island of all the games you've played and all the hours you've logged, what 3 or 5 or so games would you want to play?
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Well, they not only credited you for the idea for the episode, they listed off your 5.
Sure did.
And then they listed off mine, but with an extra remark or two.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna
Next one from Dylan from the Mid Pod.
Dylan, hi Dylan.
Hey Dylan.
Yesterday he said that these are in no particular order: Age of Empires 2, the Conqueror's expansion; NCAA Football 14, because the friggin' new one will take another 2 years.
Yep.
GTA 5. 4 is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 7. 8, sorry. Wait, what?
8.
Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8. What the fuck is that?
Never even heard of that.
And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Okay. I'd also just like to point out something that you didn't point out, that he's put 1, Age of Empires, B, NCAA, then hyphen, and then Roman numeral for 4, and then bullet point.
Why is he? Thing is, he's done this on purpose. No one does that by accident.
No, it made it so much harder to read. I was looking at it like,
that's
which
why I
one's...
was confused. Yeah. That's like, wait, is this a what?
You know that Jordan can barely read anyway, and now you're making it more difficult.
I can't believe you
made him cry now,
I thought
Dylan.
we were friends.
Can I just say, Dylan has one of my favorite wits in podcast.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
He's very funny.
So sharp.
He is.
So quick.
He's like a tack, like a razor blade. Moving on.
A razor blade that I left on the tablet.
Tablet must be French.
So if you'd like to hear their selections as well as mine and Dylan's again, that is their episode 131, I believe.
Which wonderful. The whole episode was great, especially the part where I was complimented. And we just love those guys. They're just some of our favorite podcasters, and we haven't lured them into our white van that is Odd Pods Media yet. But we got to get them in our network because
Free candy.
They have a fantastic show, and their accents are lovely. And being complimented by someone with a British accent just makes it all the better.
It makes it all the more credible.
It is much more credible.
It does.
Yeah, than a Midwestern accent.
Yeah. We spoke about this with them that here in the United States, that when we hear somebody speaking with a British accent, we automatically add 50 IQ points to that person. Doesn't matter whether or not we know them or who they are. So
yeah, it's totally true. So thank you for that. We completely stole that without permission whatsoever. Expect a cease and desist across the pond from them anytime. Speaking of feedback, we have some voicemails. We mentioned it at the very end of the last episode. We got several from Keegan. I really wanted to do the Blues Clues, but say we just got a voicemail and sing it, but I didn't.
We just got a voicemail. We just got a voicemail. We just got a voicemail. I wonder who it's from.
I already said Keegan. I already said it. Keegan, though.
Keegan. It's from Keegan.
And so we got
Michael
a plethora. If we're playing, that's so funny. I was just doing a quote from Three Amigos before we started, and now we're back at a plethora.
What is a plethora?
Which is another Three Amigos reference. Kendall's not seen Three Amigos?
I mean, I've seen it, but it was a long time ago, and I don't.
Look up here. Look up here. You two.
You said you weren't going to do it.
I know, but I moved my head back.
You did. We're getting better at microphones.
I had never planned on actually doing that in this episode, but here we are with a plethora of sounds.
We're getting better. Hey, just a little thing that I heard today, that President Biden had a Zoom call with Putin.
Okay.
And apparently they pulled back the curtain so that we could see the portion of it that they wanted us to see.
Sure.
And Biden was having trouble getting his microphone to work, which if the White House can't get their stuff together sometimes, it makes me feel better about our microphone skills and about the one time that I forgot to turn a microphone on and those sorts of things. So when I see those things, it just makes me feel good that it happens to the White House too.
It does. And one of the keys is where you're putting your mouth.
Okay. So let's play the first of several voicemails from listener Keegan.
Dylan, thank you for making me relive one of the most awkward moments in my life. You were talking about almost slipping up and saying night-night to the Target employee, and it immediately brought me back to telling my neighbor's mom I loved her on the phone and then saying, "Good night, Mom," and hanging up. Don't know if you guys have had that experience as well. Sounds like Kendall and I are in the same boat of saying awkward things. Definitely happens to me kind of all the time. But just wanted to say thanks for making me relive that moment. Certainly one that I will remember and cringe at for a lifetime.
That's great. I'm sure I've said equally silly things to people that I'm just not blanking outside of night to the person at Target. That was episode 124 that Keegan was referencing. Do you guys have you slipped like that and said just the silly thing to the wrong person?
Yeah. I mean, in the discussion, the one that gets to me the most is at a birthday party at a Burger King when I was young and telling all of the parents happy birthday to you too or whatever when they would walk away. And for some reason that's always stuck with me. And I know that I do that sort of thing all the time, but actually in interpersonal conversation, I tend to be very awkward. Like Corey does, I overthink after little conversations and things over things that don't matter. And, yeah, so I'm not. I don't consider myself a very good one-on-one chat with somebody I don't really know. That's not a skill of mine.
Yeah.
So I'm on a podcast.
All right. Well, next voicemail.
Hey guys, it's me again. Calling this time about video games in real life. So this one might be a bit longer, but in college, I was playing a lot of Call of Duty and probably staying up way too late, as every good college student does. And I had an 8 a.m. chemistry class that I'd have to go to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oof.
So I'm sitting in class, and all of a sudden my teacher is talking, and he tucks down under the desk to pull out whatever topic we were talking about that day, whatever he was bringing up to give us an example of. And I swear that when he rises back up from ducking down underneath the desk, that he has an army hat on and an AK-47 in one hand and a grenade in the other, and I jolted up out of my seat and woke up. Don't know if anybody heard me stir or if I said anything. Quite possible that I could have yelped, but that was definitely mid-chemistry class and probably induced by staying up till 3 a.m. multiple nights in a row playing Call of Duty. I think that's the closest to having an actual video game experience that I've seen, but loved the story of the trailer truck. And yeah, Dylan, I think I would have found any other route home beside going behind the truck after they had run over that bell. So again, thanks for the laugh, guys. Hope you enjoy.
Another reference from episode 124. We must have caught him on a commute home or something.
I think so.
He got the same episode in with a couple voicemails. Yeah, man. I don't know that I've ever, been, felt shell shocked in the middle of an 8 a.m. class, but that's a really good one.
Yeah, I don't know if those were hallucinations or if he was actually dreaming or part dreaming, and then jumped up. But man, that's like a real one. That would scare the heck out of me.
Yeah, that could also, it's college, lack of water might also be the case there.
True. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have one more. Let's play that.
All right, kind of a tangent from the last one, but question. We've gone over some real-life video game experiences. Have you ever had real-life movie experiences or cartoon experiences? I'll give an example. Just this past fall, I saw a mailman get chased by a dog for the first time in my life. I'd always seen it in cartoons, never actually thought dogs would chase the mailman, but watched it occur across the street from me. The mailman literally tossed the mail out in front of him, reached into his satchel bag, and pulled out an air horn that he started spraying at the dog, or just sounding off at the dog. I couldn't control myself. I wanted to go help the poor guy, but I was dying laughing inside because I didn't actually think this was a thing. I didn't know that dogs actually chase mailmen. So, what are your thoughts, guys? Have you ever seen any kind of movie moments or cartoon moments play out in life? Would love to hear your experience.
That's a good prompt.
That is a good prompt.
Can I skip to my end story here? Because that's a really good segue to that. Will it mess up the album too much?
The album?
Yeah. So there's a GIF.
Well, let's jump back to that.
Okay. Yeah. Keegan, I have a really good answer for that one at the end of this episode. So stick around. I know you will.
If there weren't visual props for the YouTubers, YouTube watchers, then I would say go for it. But
yeah,
do you have any other ones? I can think of something you did that was kind of cartoonish growing up.
Okay.
And probably several cartoonish moments. And I'm thinking, when I say cartoonish, I mean somebody buffoonishly hurts themselves for other people's comedic enjoyment.
Sure.
Kendall, do you have any?
Well, so there's just last week, everybody in my household had gone to bed. Mm-hmm. The kids were long since in bed. My wife had just gone to bed, which for me is my cue to go to the bathroom on a lot of nights. And I sit down and I rip a loud, echoey fart in the toilet, like loud. I'm downstairs. Whole family, the kids sound asleep upstairs. No sooner does that fart complete do I hear my little girl screaming in terror, running into our bedroom for comfort because she doesn't know what just happened.
Because of the monster that lives in the deep.
I literally farted my entire family awake in terror.
That's pretty cartoonish.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing that I can think of that you would see in a cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Well, one of the first that came to mind, me laughing at you, that's me gesturing to Corey, was when we were growing up. You decided it was a good idea to jump from the roof of the house onto the trampoline as if somehow you wouldn't just smack your bottom on the ground and then fly off. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I remember like you jumping, and I don't know how old you were. I was still old enough to know it was a bad idea. But you wanted to try it. And so that's what happened. You jumped off, you created enough pressure that your bottom hit the ground through the trampoline. You flew off and landed in the grass. And I was just surprised you didn't break anything.
Yeah, I remember my tailbone hurting for a very long time after that.
Yeah. We used to take boxes and mattresses and slide down our stairs into our basement. There was a door pretty close to the bottom. So if you had enough momentum or a good roll, you might smack into the door.
And depending on how short that box was, the front end of the box that you were using like a sled, it would catch the lip of the next step and sometimes just tumble you
right
end over end, ass over apple cart, as they say.
That would have been pretty comedic. I was also thinking about riding the three-wheeler. We had a large, it wasn't that large of a property, but it was a long rectangular property with a lot of trees. And our house was right in the middle of it.
Okay.
And it was a white house. So you kind of, if you're riding the three-wheeler, at some point, you know, you're kind of bottlenecked. You've got to go around the house and turn. Well, I was going too fast. Knew if I tried to turn to go around the house, I was going to roll the three-wheeler, and I couldn't slow down fast enough. So I smacked right just dead into the house. No. My whole body flew up out of my chair. My whole body, including my face, smacked the siding on the house. And then I just plopped right back down into the three-wheeler and bent the whole front bars. So, like, anyone watching would have just seen me throw my own body up against the house to smack it and land.
The cartoon version would have been splat.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would have been.
Was it splat and slide, or did you bounce off?
I actually bounced off back into the seat. Yeah. It was enough. It was enough of a hit. Smacked right into that plastic siding and bounced right back into the three-wheeler seat.
You need to stop buying three-wheelers from road runners.
Yeah. And I know there was one more.
I always think of people that I've actually seen in real life, like step on a rake and like the handle comes up and hits them in the face. Like,
yeah, sure.
I've done that.
Have you?
Oh, yeah. I've done that with one of like the metal tine gardening rakes, and thinking I was going to be cool and catch it and missing, because if you've ever tried that, it comes up with more force than you would think. It really does.
I'm sure.
And it only has one direction to go. Like I don't.
I mean, we've all tried that. It's not a movie or cartoon moment. Well, it could be a movie moment. We've all tried that like fadeaway shot on the basketball hoop when nobody's looking in our backyard or driveway or whatever. Rarely ever making those, but occasionally, and then you look around and nobody's there.
Yeah.
I don't know. More cartoonish than anything else. There was one more. If I think of it, I'll let you know. But Keegan, thank you so much for the voicemails. Those were great. And Corey will have one more story for us towards the end. So those were great. Thank you, and night.
Yes. Love you.
Night.
Love you. Have a good flight.
Before we get too far away, I wanted to mention this when we were talking about Grief Burrito earlier. because just today I had a moment that kind of ties into your like do the fadeaway shot and you actually make one look around and there's nobody there.
Right.
And I've talked about before how like if I'm playing a football game on my phone or whatever and I'm doing things really well and strategic, I often think to myself, man, what if Tom Brady was sitting right here congratulating me and complimenting me on my football strategy? That would be so awesome. Well, today, Tom Brady's not involved in this story, but I've been playing Super Mario Odyssey, and and I was to a point where I knew that I was within the last couple of bosses or so before Bowser, before the big final roll credits situation, and so I'm sitting there playing that. Next thing I know, like Isaac, my oldest, is over my shoulder watching me play. And then the next thing, like over the course of all of this, all three of my kids are now like huddled around me. I'm holding the Switch and they're huddled around me just watching intently and like cheering, and my daughter is like at points looking away. I can't look. You're
my hero.
And then they're all looking like they're giving me tips and pointers as good as a 5 or 6 year old can. And I'm playing, and so like that like spurs me on past like what ended up being the second to last boss, go on to Bowser, and like we're having all these moments because it takes me several tries to beat him, and then I beat him, and then like I'm all high-fiving the kids and stuff, all the credits are rolling, and we just all had that moment when you beat a game where you're just sitting there just watching the credits with a big smile on your face. And so I got to have a video game moment where an audience was cheering me on and erupting once I defeated the boss. And it was an amazing feeling. Wow. It is worth having kids just for that.
Well, I'm proud of my friend Kendall today.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great. And you know, that's one time though that I would say not docked, or docked versus handheld. Docked on your theater system or stereo when the triumphant like music is playing.
Yeah.
That's like the one time where I know you like to play handheld, but I'd push back and go, man, as soon as you beat it, you got to dock it and turn it up just to really get the full effect.
But you don't want to miss anything.
I know. That's the
You know what I mean?
trade-off. Yeah.
So I'm always afraid of what's it like. I'm always staying well clear of the buttons because I don't want to accidentally skip past like the treat that I get to watch.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, that's great. I feel like I have to segue too into on occasion we are cultured, right? So we've had some more serious episodes in the past. We've had some really insightful, I think, episodes.
2 or 3, yeah.
2 or 3 of them out of 100 and whatever. So this isn't going to be a whole episode, but I do want to mention, props to my wife. She saw that there was going to be an experience. It's been all over, but in our part of the country, called Immersive Van Gogh. So the painter, Vincent Van Gogh, they have an exhibit for his work. It's immersive because it's not just framed paintings or duplicates of paintings on a wall that you go look at. There's this team that has basically created the paintings as if you're watching them being painted in front of you or they're moving in front of you.
Yeah.
And so she saw this, I think, in a Netflix show. Was the first time she saw it, called Emily in Paris. They referenced it there in the main character. And then she saw that it went to Columbus. So we got tickets. It was her birthday. So we went and did that and had dinner. And I have to say, for something that I wouldn't normally do, like not that I wouldn't want to go do it, but just not something I would normally pick. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most unique things I've ever done. Very, very cool experience. Not like my favorite thing I've ever done, but very unique. If I describe it, it won't do it justice. But if you imagine a long rectangular room, there's nothing in the room. There's a couple posts, and even those they put kind of like glass mirror things around the posts, so it's reflecting the wall. And it's literally empty. There's projectors projecting on all the walls, and there's a sound system, and you're just watching the art come to life in about a 45-minute show that sort of walks you through his stages of painting. He only painted for about 10 years, as I've learned. And it was really cool. Maybe I'll share some of the videos from the on our social media channels so you guys can check it out. Again, I won't do it justice because if you think, well, it's just like they're just putting videos on a wall of like the art.
Yeah.
It's not like a slideshow presentation. It's
Right.
it's a very different way of presenting it that I thought was incredibly cool. And for all the nerds, it reminded me of one nerdy moment in Doctor Who where the doctor, I don't even remember the circumstances that this happens, but Vincent van Gogh was never aware of the impact he had on the art community in his lifetime. There's one episode where the doctor and Vincent van Gogh are able to go to the present and go to the Louvre in France. And while Van Gogh is there with the doctor, he asks this tour guide about the impact Van Gogh has had.
Mm-hmm.
And Van Gogh gets to hear from a tour guide about the impact that he's had on the art world. Obviously, that's a made-up thing,
Right.
and I'm not going to cry about it. But it was very beautiful in a fantastical, non-real way of just thinking about the lives of some of the artists and the impact that they've had on the art community in the world. So a couple things to go look up if you want. Try to check out Immersive Van Gogh if it's in your area, or look for some of the videos and photos. And if you're a big geek like me, go find the clip from Doctor Who where he takes Vincent Van Gogh into the future so that he can actually finally learn about the impact he had with his art.
You sent some video. It looked amazing, and they isolate individual brushstrokes and sort of layer them on top of the next, and so they've sort of animated the layers, so it's almost like you're seeing, and this is just from your video. It's almost like he's painting it live, and it's all set to music, and so mood and color comes into play. I saw the little circles on the floor. Was that like for social distancing, just to keep families?
Yes, yeah. So because everyone's in there just standing there, you're required to wear masks, and then there are circles on the floor to keep your little units of who you're with, everyone 6+ feet apart. So it's very safe and everything like that.
That's cool.
But it's very, very cool. That was a better technical explanation of what was happening. And of course, the soundtrack that they pick is incredible. I think there's even a Spotify playlist that you can search Immersive Van Gogh and listen to some of it. But if you don't see it with the art as it's happening,
Right.
it's really not the same thing. I honestly don't remember at all what we paid, but I'm sure I would pay a lot more than what we did to go see it again. It was very cool.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So myself and a lot of people all over the world, like Starry Night is one of my favorite paintings.
Right.
And I've seen some of the advertisements and things and the videos that you sent, and it does look absolutely amazing. How long is it in Columbus for? It's been going on for a little while.
Yeah, I wish I knew. That's not helpful for any listeners, but I can, as somebody that is not overly sentimental, it was beautiful and moving, and it was really, really cool. If I found out something similar was happening with other artists, even if I didn't know them as well, I'd love to. I would definitely go do it again because it was such a cool experience. And at one point, they even show some of his own self-portraits. One of, and most of them are pretty neutral. One of them is very sort of distressed and cracked.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the neat thing too, and one last little bit about it that I thought was really, really cool. The day before they send you their, kind of confirmation email, whatever, they say, hey, here's a clip, an audio clip, like a little MP3 file. If you can, it's 12 minutes. Listen to this quick history of Van Gogh before you arrive. And so on the way there, my wife and I listened to it. So we were able to get the full, like a 12-minute little biography on Van Gogh before going in, which absolutely was, in my opinion, essential supplemental material to what you were about to see happen. And so very, very cool. Corey might have dates.
Yeah, and Van Gogh did not pay us to say this, but if you are interested in tickets, it looks like at first glance it's going to be on exhibit until February 6th of next year. So
Cool.
And don't worry, it's not so immersive that they cut your ears off when you leave.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important. And
But can you? Do they supply?
Yeah.
scissors
I'm sure
and
if
knives?
you wanted to, you could add that experience to someone's evening.
I would assume it will be the same location, at least as far as the Ohio people. It was near Polaris Fashion Place on the north side of Columbus, which we ended up getting Molly Woo's after, and it was a great evening. So anyways, that's my plug.
Fantabulous.
Cool. And speaking of art, and Keegan, this goes to your question. So, my daughter, my middle child, Chloe, had some artwork on display on the town square the evening of the tree lighting. We have a cute little square in our town. It's a small little, it is officially a city now. Is it town? No, city. Yeah, city of Sunbury. Cute little square. There were people dressed in like Dickens era clothing who were going to be singing that night. And then one of the many businesses on the square was showing some artwork, and Chloe had a piece that was on display. And so I had this experience that felt like I was in a movie. And I couldn't quite place, after having had the experience, and we'll show the video in a second, I couldn't quite place the film. I now know that it was the movie Serendipity with John Cusack and, I can't remember the female lead right now. Serendipity came out in, I think, early 2000s, 2001. Kate Beckinsale. And there's an...
2001.
Yeah. Every romantic comedy, and can you look up who plays Lars? Every romantic comedy, it seems, or many of them, have a moment where you think the female lead is going to end up with a jerk guy.
Okay.
And sometimes the male lead is even trying to convince her, you don't want to be with him. He's not right. This
Yeah.
rom-com.
John Corbett, by the way, who you may also know as the primary love interest in My Big Fat Greek Wedding 1 and 2.
So John Corbett
Whatever.
plays this guy Lars, and Lars is this very new agey guy with long, tight, curly Michael Bolton like hair, and he plays a wind instrument, and he's doing it like he's kind of gyrating, not quite like in
The Lost Boys.
Tim Campolo.
Tim Capello in Lost Boys, but he's kind of like, he just comes off as like really sleazy and douchey, and you don't like him. So there's a gif of Lars from Serendipity. So that's Lars, and you think that Kate Beckinsale is going to end up with him. So here I am now, back to the town square for Chloe's art. So her art is on display. I walk into this room where her grade level, the artwork is for her grade level, and I hear this very interesting music, which you'll hear in a second, and I look to my left, and the person playing said music is Lars from Serendipity. And I was like, I felt like I was on a hidden game show. I was like, is this somebody has to... I wanted to just laugh out loud, but he's taking this very seriously and providing live music for the art exhibit. And I was like, I have to encapsulate this moment somehow, but we're the only ones in here. And it's a small room. I can't just hold my phone and point it at this guy, sort of like slowly gyrating to weird wind instrument music. So I was like, I know, I'll make it look like I'm doing like a slow pan around the room to just film all the artwork. And here's that scene. He's swaying.
And he caught you.
He caught me. He looked at me. You have to realize this is a very small room. This is a ballet dance studio where Chloe used to take dance class. We're the only ones in the room. This guy, and I'm like, it's the guy from the movie. So I called Dylan afterwards, and I'm trying to like describe. Okay, there's this rom-com. I think early 2000s. There's a guy with long curly hair, brown. You don't really like him. He's new agey. He's playing an instrument. He's like, you're gonna need to give me more than that. And I'm like, ah. I go home and I describe it to Sherry. She's like, yeah, Serendipity. It's Lars, John Corbett. I'm like, oh, yes. So that's one of those scenes where, and so back to your question, I think, Keegan, I have those moments when I observe something that is like so stereotypical that it's comedic. So like you're in France, and this happened to me. I was in France, and there's a guy with a beret, and he's got a baguette in his bicycle basket. And you're like, that's like the iconic thing, right? And so I just laugh at those moments and look around like, Is anybody else seeing this? Oh man, I laughed internally so hard. I tried to keep it in. That just really struck my fancy. I like that a lot.
And did we show the GIF? Is there a GIF?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
We did. Okay, good.
I'll
For
put
any
it
of
up
the
again.
YouTube-
I'll put
Back
it in
to
there for
Lars.
the
Back
rest
to
of it.
Lars.
There he is.
That's awesome. I knew there was one. I didn't want to miss it.
Oh man, that just made me laugh.
So when you had first, you sent us the GIF, and then you sent us the video. Now Dylan is the one who puts these videos together in an album that we're sharing from an iPad, and so Dylan was going to know what the video was. Corey had asked me to not look at the video yet. To save it for the podcast, as we say.
Yeah.
But there was the description of the video was like Lars at, and so like I got really excited. I thought we were about to see Lars
Ulrich
from Metallica.
Sorry to disappoint. I mean, not only is the likeness to John Corbett in that film uncanny, but he's playing a similar instrument with as much enthusiasm.
I was really blown away by both the video and the GIF. And so, not to end this part of the episode on a big bummer for Kendall, but this seems like a great spot to hear from one of our friends in the Odd Pods Media Network.
Hi, I'm Sam.
I'm Richie.
I'm Little Matt.
And here in the 500 Section Lounge, we are three dads who host a family-friendly weekly podcast.
Yep, we laugh, we go on tangents, and we talk to great guests.
Tangents? I don't know what you're talking about with that. You know, there are gases leaking.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we have legendary conversations from sports to history and everything in between.
So be on the lookout for what we do next.
And always be there to
Grab a listen.
And we're back. Man, we're so cultured, and we were having a good laugh during the break because we have a shared note that we work from just to like have some fodder to grab at during the episode if we're getting some dead air. But now we're at the point where we know the other guys are looking at it during the week, and we don't want them to know what we're going to say. So Kendall wrote in code FMFAIT for his story. Right as it happened, which stands for
farting my family awake in terror. Which I don't want to write that in the note.
Of course.
Right.
Only you would know. I just love that we're like, so we get the genuine reaction. That's really fun.
Well, speaking of freaking Serendipity in 2001 also had Jeremy Piven in it. I didn't know you were going to bring up any, like the movie. I just watched a movie with Jeremy Piven, which in my head, I think of Jeremy Piven, and I don't watch a ton of TV drama, so this isn't fair to him, but I'm thinking of a lot of like rom-coms and like older stuff where he was bit parts Rush Hour, where he's like, you know, let's put a dead animal on you. Like I'm thinking of like those kind of like silly lines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And holy cow, my wife and I watched a movie on Netflix, My Dad's Christmas Date, with Jeremy Piven in it. And dude's got some serious range. And for anyone, I guess, who's watched Jeremy Piven in any of the... I went to look at his IMDb page and realized he's been in all these really good, serious dramas. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. I just had lost track of him. Tons of range. The movie itself was... It was fine. It was... Well, no. I mean, the reason I said that, because I was going to try to figure out how to describe it. Netflix describes it as a British comedy, which means 97% sad drama, 3% comedy. and that's what it was. Don't go into it expecting an actual comedy. It's like you're going to cry most of the time, and you might chuckle a few times.
It's like The Martian being considered a comedy at the Oscars. So.
Yeah. What the heck? And that's how, British, for British humor, I'm sure that's accurate. But, well, it's like, what is it? However many weddings and a funeral started out as a British movie. Very dark humor at times. 4 weddings and a funeral. Thank you. So, the movie was really good, mostly a drama, but I had no idea. I hadn't seen, and so I'm looking up just now Serendipity on IMDb, and he's in that. Probably
he's the friend.
Okay,
he's John Cusack's friend.
So he's playing that role, And if anyone's just kind of likes the obscure Christmas movies and wants something to watch, go check it out. It's a father-daughter journey kind of story.
Okay.
And the only thing, my only criticism, and Kendall, I would almost need you to watch it to validate or deny my only real negative thought about the movie. A lot of the soundtrack felt off. Things would peak at the wrong times. Things would the wrong song selection. They clearly wanted to show off a lot of England where the movie takes place. So if you're if you're a fan of Britain and the history and culture, obviously we are Grief Burrito. That's the whole British culture right there.
Pretty much.
If you're a fan of those kind of scenic views and London, shots of London or whatever, or you like Christmas movies and family, whatever. But the soundtrack, it was something, almost the whole movie. I found myself pulled out of the movie by the soundtrack multiple times.
And you're talking both song selection, but then also like the soundtrack just seems like it was shifted a little bit too far forward.
Out of place at times.
Yeah.
Volume. The part of the song would feel triumphant at like a heavy moment. Wrong song selection at times. It was like the only thing, and this is us being nitpicky, right? But like that was the only thing that pulled me out of it. But otherwise, it was good, and Jeremy Piven was so good in it. I would watch it again just to see him act in that role again. It was a really sweet movie. And so for anybody that likes that kind of thing and has some time, go on Netflix and check it out.
Well, I'm gonna have to.
And if you come back and tell me I'm way off base, I will 100% accept it.
It's interesting though that you observed it, which means it had to stick out enough that you went, this is kind of weird. And you don't think it was an artistic choice. It just felt like the wrong decision. Like in an action movie where there's a fight scene and a bunch of people are getting slaughtered, it's fun to play like, imagine me and you and me during that time. Because it's like, you're saying it wasn't like that. It was like.
I don't think it was artistic choice.
Yeah.
I think it was
bad choice.
I
I think it was just somebody like randomly pulled out their
I don't know,
iTunes
this'll
account
work.
and they're just like, movie playlist.
Look,
boom.
And I get it.
And then
the listeners are thinking he goes to one Van Gogh exhibit and all of a sudden he's a snob. It's not me being pretentious. I honestly think it was. I think most of the time I love a good score. Most of the time I don't think I would have cared. I happened to notice it. But again, it didn't make me dislike the movie. This is like our conversations about pizza.
yeah.
Even bad pizza, I'm still going to eat it.
Right.
But I definitely have preferences when it comes to pizza.
Sure.
So this is that. So if you watch it, or if any listeners go to watch it, it's totally worth it for Jeremy Piven. The daughter she does a great job as well. She's young. I can't think of her name as an actress, but I only recognize Jeremy Piven. And he has a female friend who I had to look up on IMDb who was Anita the mom in the live action 101 Dalmatians. And I'm like, I never would have remembered that reference, but I knew that I recognized her. I just didn't know how. And so anyways, if anybody has watched it or watches it, let me know if you think the soundtrack is off or if I'm off. I'm not an art snob all of a sudden.
That's really funny.
So anyways.
Speaking of range, Jeremy Piven has been doing stand-up for the last 5 or 10 years.
Really?
To some criticism from true comics, pure comics who didn't come from the acting world first. I don't know if he's good or not. I've not heard any of his material, but yeah, he's been doing stand-up.
That sounds like jealousy because they would have rather it have been the other way around.
There's very much
tons
a thing.
of money in acting.
There's very much a thing in the stand-up world. You guys know I've been a stand-up fan for a long time, and then listening to the podcast of comics for a long time. And there is kind of this stigma about people who earn their spot because they're already famous, not because of their stand-up chops alone. They didn't come up the traditional way. You kind of side-skirted that and then came in because you're already famous. Now, if you're good, they seem to have no problem with you.
If you're funny, you're funny.
If you're funny, you're funny. And sometimes people will buy those tickets just because you're Jeremy Piven. So that goes away if you're legit. But I think when they first come in to that profession, the true comics are a little like, we'll see.
Yeah, that I mean, if you presented this as a neutral scenario and you said You can make tons of money acting for a while and then decide if you want to go do comedy. Or you can barely eat and do that for 20 years as a comic and hope that you can break into movies.
That's a great point.
Nobody's going to ever pick the second one.
Sure.
They'll be like, yeah, give me Jeremy Piven all day long. And if he's kind of funny, great. I can go enjoy a show. And I'll laugh extra because I've watched him in some other movies.
He could be great. I've not seen his stuff.
I've not seen it either. Now I feel like I want to go watch it because he was an actor first.
Yeah.
He must really know how to be funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling cultured lately too because I told you guys last week that I've been binging the series Formula One Drive to Survive. I have now finished said series, 3 seasons.
Wow.
10 episodes apiece. I'm absolutely hooked. In the learning phase. This is not like, oh, Corey's adopted a new thing. You said a few weeks ago, like you're into so many things. I've not necessarily adopted this as a new thing, but I'm like enjoying the deep dive and learning about it.
Right.
Once I finished the finale of season 3, I looked up when the next live race was going to be and if I could watch it. We have ESPN Plus, so I could watch like the 20 or 21st race of the season. The season is almost over. So I got to see the second to last race live in Saudi Arabia, where the number 3 team is usually Red Bull. I said it's usually Mercedes, Ferrari, and then Red Bull is usually in third. And then there's a bunch of teams that sort of make up the midfield who are always jockeying for position. The Red Bull driver is tied with the guy who's been leading season after season after season after season. His name's Lewis Hamilton. He's a driver for Mercedes. It's like the Alabama of college football. You're just tired of them winning. And Max Verstappen is the driver for Red Bull. And so going into this race, they're almost tied in the driver points for the entire year. So I picked a really good time to start watching Formula One at the end of the season. So during the race, I watched qualification on Saturday night, and then I watched the race live on Sunday afternoon. During the race, the commentators were saying things like, and I'm not exaggerating, in the 5 years we've been commentating on Formula One, we've never seen anything like this. If you're just watching Formula One, this doesn't happen. The things that were happening, crashes. It's a new track and it's not been tested. And so teams don't know how to prepare for this new track in Saudi Arabia. So they don't know which tires to use.
Speaking of movie moments, this just sounds like Cars 4.
So all of this to say, the race ends. There's a ton of debate about things that happened during the race, seemed very sketchy. There's an overarching body that looks at things and the rules, and they're the stewards of the sports called the FIA, and they look at things, and there were penalties assessed that people are still talking about. They're like, this is absurd. That shouldn't have happened. All of this boils down to the fact that now Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are exactly tied at the exact points going into the last race of the season.
Wow, beautiful.
Which is in Abu Dhabi on Sunday. So I'm like, it just feels like it was perfect to wind up 3 seasons of this beautifully done documentary and then watch a race that apparently is super rare, and they're tied coming into the last race. I'm all about it.
So come Sunday, paint a picture for me. Come Sunday, you're going to obviously want to watch this race, right?
Yes.
You're going to sit in your chair and you're going to turn on ESPN Plus, and Sherry's going to walk in and she's going to say, "What are you watching?" And how do you explain that you have a new thing?
It already happened.
Okay, so tell me the real story.
Here's why that's not going to happen this weekend.
Okay.
I'm taking Sherry to Lambeau Field in Green Bay this weekend. That's a whole other side story. So, but it happened this past weekend during the Saudi Arabia race. So I come downstairs and I was like, "Hey, what time are we going to have this and such a thing on the calendar?" She's like, "Later, why?" And I was like, "Well, I want to see a race." A race? I've never watched
that. You've never uttered that phrase.
I watched NASCAR because our Uncle Chad was into NASCAR when we were kids. I may have watched half of a race ever in my 37 years.
Yeah.
And she said, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "I've been watching this documentary. It's 3 seasons long. There's like 30 episodes now I've consumed of like Formula One documentaries. I just want to see what it's like. There's qualifying on Saturday night, and the race is on Sunday." She's like, "Okay."
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I watched a documentary on ventriloquism and had to watch the Nationals the next year, so it's fine.
But yeah, it does feel a little bit like that. And because I have that swirling around me that I always like to deep dive different things, I almost don't want to tell anybody. So I'll just save it for a podcast.
Yes.
But like, yeah, I'm seeing what it's all about. And I'll admit, there were some points of the race that were a little boring. And there's a lot of numbers and analytics flying around the screen. Mm-hmm. They break up the track into sectors, and they're like, oh, he beat that time for that sector of the... And so you're supposed to be able to look at all these zigzag charts and know what that means. And I still don't understand the strategy and when you pit to get new tires versus... there's a lot I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying immersing myself
there you go.
into the world of Formula One.
I feel like there are a lot of things like that. Most sports probably are that you have to make a decision at some point that you're going to invest some time into figuring out what's going on so that it can become more interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm a lifelong hockey fan.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, everybody around me would never be. Ohio didn't have a team.
Right.
And all that stuff. They would talk about how hockey was the most boring thing to watch on TV, and that got me thinking because I would sometimes watch a game, Stanley Cup Finals. Sometimes some people will watch it,
right,
and you get to talk to them about it. And that disconnect is they don't know, outside of a goal getting scored or a fight breaking out, they don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
They just see a bunch of guys skating around chasing after a puck, but there's a lot more positioning and other strategy and things like that. And then especially once you get to know what the rules are and what the penalties are, instead of just they blew a whistle and stopped playing, I don't know why.
Right.
And that kind of thing. I actually had a clinic for a while, is what I sold it as to some friends when Columbus got a team, the Blue Jackets, and a few years after, they were really trying to get fans in the stands. The Blue Jackets were struggling filling up a stadium for a long time because nobody around here was a hockey fan, and so they did this thing for a while called the Huntington Green seats, which were $10 seats that you could buy the day of the game and only the day of the game. And so I would go and I would buy 2 tickets, one for me and one for anybody who wanted to join me, and I will answer every question they have.
Yeah.
And had a couple of takers on that. But
that's fun.
But yeah, I feel like that's where you are. They have all of these stats and numbers and things floating around, which might be super interesting if you knew what they were and what they meant and how important or not they are. And you start to develop some opinions on things like that. And
yeah, it's interesting too, because we've said about this podcast, we're on episode 131. If somebody were just joining us now, do they are we continually not changing our content for the newest listener, but are we mindful of the newest listener? Do we have them in our mind? So it's interesting to be on this side and assess the barrier to entry. Are your average races simulcast or presented or produced in a way that somebody who's just clicking to this for the first time could get the gist, or do you need that person? I think the documentary was cool in that it gave me the appreciation of the history of the sport, context, introduction to the top team, the 10 teams. There's only 10 teams. How all the backhanded deals and drivers switch teams, and they use that as now I have the knowledge of what that team and their strategy. So, but it doesn't educate you on the technical aspects of a race or what it means when the listing of the 20 drivers on the side, one changes to red and one changes to purple and 4 move down. I'm assuming that's just where they are
on the track.
And so that part is really interesting, but it's probably good every once in a while for whoever's producing any kind of content to be like, how much do we have a brand new person in mind? You can't design all of your content for that because But I imagine somebody who knows nothing about college football, take the grief burrito guys. We bring them over here and be like, just sit in this arena of 120,000 people and just just enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of fun.
I feel like we're kind of primed now for Talladega Nights too, because in the first one, Sacha Baron Cohen, wasn't he like an F1 driver, Jean Girard, and he switched to like NASCAR? I think they need to make an F1 movie with him in Europe and like just totally do what's the movie where they make fun of dog shows?
Oh, Best in Show.
Do like a Best in Show.
Christopher Guest.
Yeah, do like a Christopher Guest Best in Show type movie with Sasha as an F1 driver and just make fun of all of it.
Yeah,
but that's also a good way to learn.
That's why I'm feeling fancy, because F1 is not NASCAR. I'll tell you.
So I've, as long as we're sharing things that we're watching and feeling fancy, my latest cultural experience has come from I got a couple weeks behind in my WWE, and which I'm glad that I decided to catch up, because otherwise I would have missed the talk of the town, which is the Friday night SmackDown Thanksgiving leftovers match.
Whoa!
So
is that like when they do the Christmas tree and presents and match?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. So if you're like a lot of people our age and were way into professional wrestling when you were a kid, or even middle school, high school, and then have no idea what it's like, it is not the same world as it was then. Then you had these guys who were super serious. They were playing up the soap opera, and they were trying to make it super dramatic soap opera-ish, and it was a very serious kind of acting career to have. They were, they weren't breaking character in public, and the whole air of the whole thing was intact. These days, all of that is out the window. They still try to do some super serious storyline stuff, but the individual wrestlers now, like in their social media worlds and otherwise out in the public, like The Miz was on Dancing with the Stars. You never would have seen that 20 years ago.
Right.
But today The Miz is Dancing with the Stars, and he's not on Dancing with the Stars as The Miz. He's just the guy, right?
Right.
But so there's that. But then, like, also detracting from the seriousness of the soap opera are they put these ridiculous fights in there, themed fights, such as, like, there's a Halloween one where there's just like pumpkins surrounding the whole thing, and they had a table set up with like a bobbing for apples barrel with apples in it that like somebody almost got drowned in, and you know that somebody was going to end up with a pumpkin like on their head, wandering around not knowing where they are, that kind of thing. You know what a Thanksgiving leftovers match literally what it's called. Somebody's going to end up with a pie in the face, and so anyway,
if they were smart, they would have made some patties out of their stuffing.
They should have.
That's awesome.
So, but that was all going on. Vince McMahon is back. It's been a long time since I've seen him.
Wow.
So he's on Friday Night SmackDown. Not wrestling, but he's doing office stuff and yelling at people, which it's been a long time since I've seen him actually on the show.
That's funny.
Can I plug one more thing I watched, and then you got to tell us about Lambo?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so for any of this is a quick pitch. Check out The Forgotten Battle on Netflix. This is for any of the World War II junkies, history junkies, but it's a Dutch-made film. Some people would remember the name Tom Felton. He's the actor who played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter series. He's not the main character, but he's just off the main bench of actors. And essentially, and the reason I think people should watch it, if you remember after Band of Brothers was wildly successful, they tried to make The Pacific. And The Pacific tried to follow a couple different people set to the backdrop of the Pacific theater of World War II. And it felt a little disjointed at times. It was hard to jump between these individual stories, amidst everything that would have been going on. And I actually think this movie did in a movie what The Pacific was trying to do with the series. So it follows a British pilot who is who it basically gets towed behind a bomber in a glider. They have their behind the scenes mission. This is all centers around the Battle of the Scheldt. It's basically Antwerp was a port, and the Allies were trying to get access to this port to help beat the Germans, right? So the British are trying to get into mainland Europe. It follows a Dutch resistance, a member of the Dutch resistance, and then a Dutch person who has joined the German army. So it's following one German soldier, one member of the Dutch resistance, and one British soldier amidst the backdrop of this sort of battle in the Netherlands. And really, really good. Super interesting if you're into that kind of thing at all. But it felt important to like sort of compare it to not necessarily the scale of the Pacific, because that was the entirety of that theater of the war. But I think it did better what that was trying to do, which was let's follow a couple people and tell their stories amidst something greater. And so it was super good. So if people are into that kind of thing, throw it in your queue and check it out. As a history guy, I thought it was super, super good.
So Lambo.
Yeah.
As a Lions fan, I'm not sure I want to hear this story.
Yeah.
So let's hear it.
Little known fact, even some of my family was surprised to learn that my wife has been a Green Bay Packers fan since she was in elementary school.
No, I had no idea.
Right. Because she typically talks about Ohio State sports, primarily football and basketball. But since the days of Reggie White and Brett Favre, when we were in grade school, she has been a fan. And her parents were farmers, and every Christmas she would ask for tickets to Lambeau Field. And they would be like, okay, well, you better hope Santa is, because we're farmers, and that's not. So After years and years of Sherry asking her parents for tickets to Lambeau Field to watch the Packers play, they finally sat her down because her little heart was broken year after year and said, Sherry, we can't afford that. How about a starter jacket? Because it was the 90s. And so they're like, you can have a starter jacket or your Letterman jacket for high school. Like, those are your choices. And she chose the Green Bay Packers starter jacket. So my colleague, Dan, who has called into this show before, Dan Rustin, one of my favorite guys to work with and travel with, he grew up in Milwaukee, Green Bay, Chicago areas, and sometime in his young life put his name on a list to get season tickets. He waited 30 years to get season tickets to Lambeau Field. Every year, or at least the years where you were getting closer and closer on the list to have your name drawn or, be next in line, they would send you on Green Bay Packers letterhead, you are 1,000th in line. Get your finances in order. Like, it's close, right? People will these tickets to the next generation. When his number finally came up and he was offered the 4 seats for season tickets, he was living in the Bay Area in California at the time. So now he's waited 30 years. His numbers come up. He usually uses a broker and sells the tickets, and sometimes goes to games, but for the most part, just sells them and has willed them to his godson. Through conversations with me, and we know the joke on this podcast that I often steal Sherry's sports stories and try to then tell them in circles of guys. And so one day I was telling, I think it was Dan, who missed the end of a Green Bay Packers game because he was traveling. I said at work, "Hey man, did you see that crazy drive Aaron Rodgers had last night at the Packers game?" And he's like, "No, what happened? I was on the plane." And that's as much as I knew. So I couldn't, because it was Sherry's story. And I just knew enough for the prompt, and I assume he had the rest of the details. He didn't. And I was stuck.
He got
so I was like, you should talk to Sherry, because he now knows the joke that I steal Sherry's sports stories. She watches Sports Center. I don't. So he's like, "Sherry, I had no idea," right? Anyway, he says to me then after that, "Hey man, this is like a bucket list thing for Sherry." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I have season tickets, right? And I was like, "Yeah." I wasn't going to ask. He goes, "Well, we got to make this happen. Just pick a game." I'm like, dude, you can't offer something like that unless you're 100. This isn't like something that you say to, Sherry has been wanting this since grade school. If you're not 100% serious, like, I'm cool, just let's not, let's end it here.
Don't ever bring it up again.
And he goes, no, just have her pick a game this season. So I tell Sherry, she's in tears. And she sort of looks at our availability and holiday plans and goes, December 12th, they're playing the Bears. So huge rivalry. In fact, the movie Christmas Story, I think, opens up with him saying something like, the Packers are playing the Bears this weekend, whatever. And so, we're going to drive this weekend, Saturday morning. We're going to leave, probably stop in Chicago or somewhere a little further north, and then complete the trek on Sunday for a 8 p.m. night game at Lambeau Field. The temperature today in Lambeau was -1 degrees Fahrenheit. So I went to Cabela's today and got myself some military grade base layer undergarments.
Smart.
To prepare. But I could not be more excited and more grateful to Dan, who is making Sherry's dream a reality. This is like a once in a lifetime thing for many people. And so we ended up getting 4 tickets, and Sherry decided to bless one of her colleagues who's arguably a bigger Packers fan than even she is, who similarly has always wanted to go to a game. He's almost our age-ish and has never been able to go. And she said, hey man, Corey's got a colleague who has some tickets, and we told his wife, and his wife gave it to him for Christmas. And he was like, he couldn't believe it. Like, he was, So, dude, super exciting. Gonna watch the Packers play the Bears. We might get to see Justin Fields play if he starts. He was out, I think, this past week. At least that's what Sherry said. And
he's been out.
Yeah. So that would be cool if we get to see Justin Fields play. But I think we got to get a cheesehead, and hope the weather's not too crazy up there for the drive back.
Yeah, and since you're revealing Sherry's Green Bay thing, I have been a Minnesota Vikings fan since I was a kid. So we have a whole little NFC North thing going on.
We sure do.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Where did that start again? Was it Adrian Peterson days?
Oh, no.
Randall Cunningham? No, he was an Eagle. And then he... Where did your love of the Vikings start while I looked that up?
Not from my parents, because our dad is a Bengals fan. And in Northwest Ohio, you're kind of split between like the Browns and the Bengals. I mean, more people, you're a little closer to the Browns, so there's a few more of those fans, but that's kind of how it goes in Northwest Ohio. And so you usually pick one of those. You get a few Colts fans, you get a few Lions fans, you get some whatever. But we had one kind of distant cousin who was a Vikings fan, but that wasn't it. I don't know where I picked it up. I probably got a starter jacket at some point, and it had a Viking on it, and I thought it looked friggin' awesome.
You know what? It probably was a Value City purchase. These boys keep talking about starter jackets. I don't know what the fuss is about. I'll get them this one. It's purple and gold.
Well, I had a Charlotte Hornets one, and Muggsy Bogues was awesome.
Dude.
So that made me a fan of the Hornets early on. And then I probably got a Viking something and just loved it, and I was like, I'm going with this. And so... because as a kid, it's not always a sound decision. It's just a decision.
Yeah.
And then it sticks with you. And so here I am, still a Minnesota Vikings fan this many years later.
Shout out to our cousin, Eric Rumball.
Yeah, no, we were bad for a long time. Still mostly are. And, most of the time you just accept mediocrity in the NFC North. And every now and then you get the Adrian Peterson flashes of brilliance. I wasn't actually excited about Brett Favre for 1 year at the Vikings because I'm like, this is like this is like the traitor, the turncoat, changing sides in a battle. That's no good.
Yeah.
And lots of bad quarterbacks. So yeah, it's fun.
Well, if you want to try to sneak a peek, look at the very top of the bowl. We'll be the ones freezing.
Cool.
Super excited. I'm
awesome.
going to make some memories.
Excited for you guys.
Yeah, should be good.
Even if it has to be the Packers.
Yeah.
I hope it's a wonderful experience.
Yes.
Awesome.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I think that's it. I think
All
we're
right.
done.
And we're almost out. Before we're out, you should go to artiusman.com, ARTIUS man.com for all of your beard products for yourself or for your man. They have all kinds of men's grooming products on there. They also have candles for everybody. Their stuff smells absolutely fantastic. They craft their own scents using the actual essential oils to do so. The things smell amazing, and the products actually work. And Stello Mints, STELLO mints.com.
Yep.
Go there and you can buy yourself some mints, CBD mints. And so if you just have those moments where you're stuck in traffic and just need something to keep yourself feeling calm and sane, this might be the kind of thing in that situation that could help you with that. We've all tried it. We all delight in it. They come in a fancy blue metal tin that looks just like a mint tin. So if you're worried about any kind of stigma or anything, there's not green leaf stamped on the side of the thing. It just looks like a tin of mints. So go there, put the middle in the discount box there at checkout, and you're going to receive 20% off of all of your orders. artiusman.com. Put in that same discount box, the middle, and you're going to receive 25% off your first order.
That's 10% at Stello and 25% at Artius Man.
Yeah.
One
I normally
promo
don't
code
do the
to
promo
roll them
codes.
all.
Yes, that's right. Anywhere you shop this Christmas, when you go to checkout, type in the middle.
Just jam in the middle.
Just put the middle in there, and the way the laws work on that is they have to pay us.
Yeah.
So
And actually, if you're on YouTube, if you go to the About section, you'll see all those details and the promo code right there.
What?
You can see the websites, what the discount is good for, and the promo code.
wait a minute. We have a YouTube page.
And
Yes,
we
we
make
do.
it that easy for people?
Super easy.
Shut the front door.